The white dress was silk, but the heart beneath it was made of cold, hard vengeance. Look at her face as she walks down the aisle. She's not looking at her groom, she's looking at his downfall. Darian waits at the altar thinking he's won the lottery while Alara's finger is already on the play button for his funeral. As the screens flickered to life in the cathedral, showing his crimes to the world, the only thing louder than the gasps was the sound of Darian's soul shattering. A tragedy in 3 acts: betrayal, alliance, and execution.
A life can pivot on a single, overheard syllable. For Erebos, that moment was meant to be a saccharine prelude to marriage, a tasting of wedding cakes. Instead, she entered a crucible, witnessing her fiancé and sister meticulously plotting the demolition of her future. In this theater of betrayal, she did not break. She pressed record. Here, we observe not the anatomy of a heartbreak, but the genesis of a reckoning, where an audio file becomes both the key to an empire's salvation and the detonator for its absolute ruin. The city's lights blurred outside, as if weeping with her. Before Darian Hale's monolith of glass and steel, Aravos contemplated a mountain of pink boxes. Inside, 7 distinct flavors, from classic vanilla to decadent chocolate ganache, were tiny, edible monuments to a promise built on lies. A 20-minute delay, born of city gridlock and confectionery disputes, had set the stage. Balancing the agile architecture of deceit, she moved toward the entrance. The doorman's familiar greeting was a ghost from a 2-year-old reality. In her pocket, the penthouse key lay heavy, a cold counterpoint to a diamond that outshone its worth in sincerity. The ascent through 43 floors was a silent, vertical journey into darkness. Ara's reflection revealed the day's wear: smudged mascara, untamed hair, details that would escape Darian's notice, his gaze perpetually fixed on a screen. When the doors opened, an unnatural blackness filled the penthouse, a stark violation of his known compulsions. Darian, scarred by a past of poverty, pathologically illuminated every room. "Darian," she called, her voice absorbed by the void as the cakes met the marble table. "Sorry I'm late." Her words were severed by a sound. It was a soft, intimate laugh from the corridor, a sound that resonated with the chilling familiarity of a nightmare. It was the laugh of her sister, Livia. An invisible current pulled Ara forward, her mind racing to process what her body already knew as she drifted toward the master bedroom. Through a sliver of light from the ajar door, she heard Darian's voice, thick with a tension that was not professional. "This has to stop." "Then let her find out." Livia's reply was a blade. "You put the ring on her finger, a foolish gambit. The merger required it. Her father won't cede the contracts without his precious girl being secure." "Yes, you have made that point 40 times, Livia retorted, followed by the rustle of fabric. "But we are in agreement. You are not actually going through with it." This was Ara's signal. With trembling fingers, she unlocked her phone, activated the recorder, and captured the transaction. 3 more months, Darian affirmed. "Once the contracts are finalized, we resolve the situation." "Resolve it? How?" Livia's laugh was venomous. "With a generous severance package?" "I will ensure she has no legal recourse. The prenuptial agreement is absolute, but her father's inheritance is not. If we time this correctly, she inherits everything upon his death. And if you are her husband when he expires, you acquire it all," Livia concluded, her tone alight with discovery. "Community property. Ingenious. The variable is timing. Marcus Voss is 72 with a fragile heart. He could fail at any moment." "Well," Livia mused, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial purr, "perhaps we could accelerate the timeline." The ensuing silence was a confession. "Livia, I am merely suggesting a pharmaceutical error, an unfortunate interaction between Bourbon and his medication, Such accidents befall older men, Darian, especially those under duress. That is murder. No, that is opportunity. Ara's phone nearly fell, her own heart a frantic prisoner in her ribs. If this proceeds, Darian conceded slowly, it must be flawless. No connections, no trace. It will be. I have researched the methods. They are invisible, Livia assured him. Besides, Ara will suspect nothing. She is too trusting, too naive. She will weep at the funeral and collapse into your arms for comfort. You underestimate her? Please. My sister offers 6 apologies for a mistaken coffee order. She is smart, Livia, not a fool. Smart about floral arrangements, perhaps. Not about the predator in her own home. Footsteps drew nearer. If she possessed any instinct for self-preservation, she would have realized months ago that you cannot bear to be in her presence. Ara recoiled, a floorboard betraying her with a groan. The voices stopped. What was that? Darian's tone sharpened. An old building settling. Relax. Go and check. Instinct seized her. She fled down the hall, taking refuge in a guest bathroom, the click of the lock a small victory. In the suffocating dark, her own ragged breaths mingled with the damning audio still being captured, their footsteps just outside the door. It is empty, Livia announced. You are becoming paranoid. I am being meticulous. As their voices receded, Ara counted to 120, then 180. She stopped the recording, 12 minutes and 43 seconds of pure leverage, and unlatched the door. What is the purpose of rage without a strategy? She held undeniable evidence that her fiancé intended to plunder her inheritance, potentially by orchestrating her father's death, with her sister as his accomplice. A direct confrontation would only yield denial, manipulation, or a far more permanent solution for her. Ara's hands grew still. She returned to the foyer, gathered the 7 artifacts of a life that was never real, and descended. She passed the doorman, a sentry at the gates of her former reality, and returned to the sanctuary of her car. Beneath the hum of the garage lights, she played back the symphony of her own destruction. Her father's voice echoed from a decade past, a lesson she had dismissed as melodrama. Information is power, Ara. The one who knows more holds the ultimate advantage, always. Marcus Voss had forged an empire by outmaneuvering men who saw him as insignificant. He was correct. In her hand, she held a weapon whose existence was a secret. Her phone vibrated. It was Darian. She watched his name pulse 4 times before answering. Hello, so sorry. Her voice was a perfect imitation of her former self, airy and untroubled. The rain has made traffic an absolute nightmare. Where are you? He inquired, his tone a flawless performance of concern. He was a master craftsman of deceit. About 20 minutes away. I have the cakes, but I know it's been a long day. We can always do this tomorrow. Actually, a work matter has just emerged. Could we postpone until tomorrow? Of course. She saw her reflection. A ruin of makeup, her hair drenched, the diamond on her hand, a cold, glittering falsehood. Tomorrow is perfect. You are the best. I love you. The words were weightless, counterfeit. I love you too, Ara replied and ended the call. Then the work began. The audio file was triplicated, sent to a personal backup, a high-security cloud server, and a dormant ghost account. A digital fortress, another lesson from her father. Ara navigated the storm-lashed streets, each landmark a monument to her fabricated life. Her apartment felt foreign, a place she had slowly abandoned for his. She set the cake boxes on the counter and poured bourbon. neat and homage to her father. Then she began to excavate the life of Darian Hale, a man whose past was a carefully curated void, a tapestry of dodged questions and vague histories. She had once assumed his reticence was the pride of a self-made man ashamed of humble origins. The truth, unearthed 3 hours later, was far more corrosive. Darian Hale was a legal fiction, a name adopted 8 years prior. He was born Darian Kozlov, son to a lieutenant in the Volkov crime family, a syndicate specializing in extortion. The federal government had dismantled the Volkovs 5 years ago, but Darian had vanished before the collapse, emerging from the ashes to construct a pristine corporate identity. It was an identity built on a foundation of sand. Her investigation revealed a labyrinth of shell corporations and phantom accounts, a frantic effort to cleanse illicit funds. Darian was not a reformed CEO. He was a wraith who had merely perfected the art of invisibility. Her family's shipping company was to be his masterwork, a clean, legitimate channel for a river of dirty money. She leaned back, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. At 4 a.m, her phone chimed. A message from Livia. "We missed you. Dad's talking about the wedding again. Call me." Ara stared at a photograph of 2 sisters on a sunlit beach, a perfect moment frozen in time, wondering for how much longer. How much longer could this charade possibly continue? The text message goes unread. Instead, a new browser tab opens, and a name is typed with stark precision. Victor D. Costa. He was a phantom in her research on Darian, a name inexorably linked to bitter rivalries and collapsed ventures, a conflict that transcended mere commerce. Victor D. Costa was the architect of the city's glittering facade, the towers, casinos, and hotels. He embodied the cold-blooded predator her father had always warned her against. The singular shadow that even Darian feared to cross. Laura examines a photograph from a charity gala. Victor, encased in a flawless suit, his eyes like voids, his expression a carefully constructed nullity. He possessed the countenance of a man who had weathered every conceivable deception, witnessed every betrayal, and had become immune to the very concept of surprise. She had met him once, a brief exchange of hands at a benefit. His politeness was glacial, akin to a shark assessing an object that is neither prey nor predator. She found herself contemplating how such a man might react if presented with irrefutable evidence of Darian Hale's impending encroachment on shipping lanes adjacent to his own territory. Her phone vibrated again. It was Darian. "Sweet dreams. Can't wait for tomorrow." Laura's gaze shifted from the text to the audio file on her display, and then to the dossier she had compiled on Victor D. Costa. In this arena, knowledge itself was weaponry. She located the address for D. Costa Industries and began to compose her message. The response arrived with unnerving speed, not from the principal, but from his executive aide, one Teresa Moss. Its tone was clinical and direct. "Mr. D. Costa will see you." Thursday, 8 p.m. The Meridian Club. Arrive unaccompanied. This afforded her 2 days. 2 days to arm herself for the confrontation. She consolidated her entire arsenal, the audio evidence, the clandestine financial ledgers, every thread connecting Darian to the Volkov syndicate. She created redundant copies of all materials, placing them in protected vaults and with her legal counsel rigged to be released in the event of her death. Through it all, she inhabited the role of the ideal fiancé, smiling at Darian over dinner, allowing him to hold her hand as he spun fantasies of their honeymoon. She even feigned enthusiasm through tastings of wedding cake, simulating a concern for trivial shades of white. She endured an agonizing lunch with Livia, absorbing her sister's grievances about their father's testament, recognizing the artifice in every uttered phrase, and she maintained her composure. She revealed nothing. She was, it seemed, a far more capable thespian than she had ever imagined. Thursday evening arrived. She informed Darian of her need for a solitary night, a spa appointment, some wine, a classically feminine pretense. He barely registered her words. The Meridian Club was a bastion of ancestral wealth, an establishment so discreet it lacked any signage. If one did not already know its location, one was simply not welcome. Laura stated her name, and a taciturn host guided her through timber-lined corridors to a secluded chamber deep within the structure. And there, awaiting her arrival, was Victor D. Costa. He was an exact replica of his photograph, the same tailored suit, the same obsidian eyes, the same inscrutable mien. Yet his physical presence introduced a new dimension. An oppressive aura of command, a palpable weight in the atmosphere that is earned only by being the most formidable individual in any given room. Miss Voss. He remained seated, merely gesturing to the chair opposite him. You indicated you possessed something of value to me. Laura sat, placing her designer handbag on the table. A prop intended to project the image of a privileged young woman, a bride-to-be, a decorative object. A sudden wave of revulsion for it washed over her. Darian Hale intends to seize my family's shipping contracts, she announced, her voice unwavering and professional. By marrying me, securing my inheritance, and perhaps expediting my father's demise. Victor's expression remained utterly static. A significant allegation. I have the documentation. She produced her phone and initiated the recording. He listened to the full 12 minutes and 43 seconds without a single utterance, without so much as a flicker of emotion. His stillness was unnerving. When it concluded, he finally relaxed into his chair. You could present this to the authorities. And report what? She countered, meeting his gaze directly. That my fiancé speculated about my father's early death? No crime has been committed. It remains mere talk. She sustained his stare. Besides, I do not want Darian imprisoned. I want him eliminated. A subtle shift in Victor's features, the ghost of a smile. Then why approach me? Because he fears you, because your influence far exceeds my own, and because the roots he covets will inevitably interfere with your own port operations. You have conducted your research. My father was a thorough teacher. Laura leaned forward, closing the distance between them. I am aware of who you are, Mr. D. Costa. I understand the world you inhabit. And I know that Darian's seizure of those international lanes will ultimately become your problem. And what is it precisely that you require from me? Protection for myself and my father. And once the conflict is resolved, she stated, I want a position at the table. Which table would that be? The one where you are currently seated. For the first time, Victor's smile was genuine. It was fleeting and sharp. You are truly Marcus Voss's daughter. I see his reflection in you. Is that a positive assessment? Your father is one of only 3 men in this city I genuinely respect. Yes, Miss Voss, it is. He lifted his glass of amber liquid. What you are suggesting entails a colossal risk for us both. I am aware. If we move against Darian, he will retaliate. He has resources, he has influence. As do you. And should I consent to this alliance, there is no retreat. You comprehend that, correct? Once this commences, it can only conclude in one fashion. In that instant, Laura envisioned it all. The recording, Livia's false laughter, Darian's casual discussion of murder, the idyllic future she had once imagined, now a heap of fractured glass. "I comprehend," she whispered. Victor observed her with an analytical intensity. Then he set down his glass and offered his hand across the table. "Welcome to the table, Miss Voss." She took it. His handshake was solid, warm, and felt more substantial than anything she had experienced in weeks. "Call me Laura," she said. And with that, the articles of war were drafted in the shadows that week. Victor's team began to excavate Darian's life, and their findings were monumental. Further corruption, more evidence of laundered funds, profound connections to criminal organizations, and sufficient material to breach at least 15 federal statutes. The resulting dossier was substantial enough to utterly annihilate a man's existence. But they waited. "We must choose the opportune moment," Victor advised her during a late-night conference at the club, "for maximum impact. At present, Darian has allies, individuals who profit from him. We must first achieve his isolation." "How?" "In 3 weeks, there is a significant gathering. The summit." Laura was aware of it. It was a clandestine, invitation-only event where the city's true power brokers convened to partition the world. Her father had previously attended, always returning in absolute silence about the proceedings. "Darian will be in attendance," Victor confirmed, "along with every person of consequence, every major player, all of his potential supporters. And you? You will enter on my arm." Laura could only stare as the concept took a moment to register. "What?" "Currently, you are merely Darian's fiancé, the dutiful daughter of Marcus Voss. A beautiful appendage." Victor's eyes held a cold fire. "But if you appear with me, if you publicly align with my side, it reconfigures the entire chessboard. It communicates that you are not a pawn to be manipulated, but a player with your own agency. It will also signal to Darian that something is profoundly wrong." "Precisely. It will disrupt his composure and he will begin to make errors. And while he is consumed by panic over what you might know, we will already be 10 moves ahead." The strategy was audacious, bordering on a suicide gambit, and Laura experienced a perverse sense of exhilaration contemplating it. "When do we begin?" she inquired. "We have already begun. From this point forward, you and I must be seen together constantly. Dinners, galleries, corporate functions. We are going to construct a new narrative, that you are not simply Marcus Voss's daughter, but a formidable force in your own right." For the subsequent 3 weeks, Laura barely knew her own reflection. She attended meetings with Victor's inner circle, the attorneys and financiers who navigated legal ambiguities. She learned the mechanics of how illicit capital is moved, how true power is brokered in quiet chambers, and she began appearing everywhere with Victor: a gallery premiere, the launch of a new restaurant, a private auction where priceless art and clandestine agreements were exchanged in hushed tones. Consequently, the entire city began to buzz about Laura and Victor di Costa. Were they romantically involved? A new partnership? The true insiders understood the subtext. This was the opening volley. Darian perceived the shift quickly. He approached her, his demeanor casual, but his eyes like stilettos. "What is the situation with you and Victor?" But Laura was prepared with her script, affecting the innocent protégé. "Oh, merely a business mentorship. It was Dad's suggestion, truly." "Your father advised you to meet with him." He insisted I learn how the major leagues are played beyond the confines of some elegant party. She lightly brushed his hand. Your work is your entire world, she said. I simply wanted to understand what that feels like. The deception was seamless, and Darian's defenses immediately lowered. Just be cautious, he cautioned. Victor is a monster. You do not want to be indebted to him. I will be careful, Laura pledged. That evening, she sent a text to Victor. He accepted it, but he is now on high alert. The reply came instantly. Excellent, let him worry. Their pivotal meeting was held at a sprawling estate outside the city, a scene lifted directly from a gangster film. Laura emerged from Victor's vehicle in a gown worth more than a small home, flanked by security personnel who appeared prepared for armed conflict. Project an aura of absolute ownership was Victor's quiet counsel as they entered. Her execution was flawless. Upon their arrival, a hush fell over the room, silencing a congregation of the city's most formidable figures: politicians, magnates, and innovators. Across the space stood Darian. His recognition was instantaneous, his expression a rapid sequence of disbelief, then fury, then the cold machinery of calculation. In a span of 3 seconds, she met his gaze, offered a knowing smirk, and deliberately turned away. And thus, Victor observed softly, the fuse is lit. The entire gathering was a theater of power. Ara moved through the room with Victor, engaging with individuals she had previously known only through headlines. While everyone remained cordial, she perceived their constant evaluation, their attempts to decipher her motives and significance. By the evening's conclusion, all speculation had ceased. She discussed operations with a casino magnate, deliberated logistics with a shipping executive, and contested urban planning with a real estate titan. The identity of Marcus Voss's compliant daughter had been shed. She was now Ara Voss, an agent of her own design. Darian later cornered her, seizing a moment of Victor's distraction. "Explain this," he demanded, his voice laced with venom. "I am building connections. Is that not the purpose of these events?" "With Victor D. Costa." "Indeed," she countered, her head tilting. "As I said, it is a mentorship. What is it about him that so disturbs you?" "Because he is a predator. He operates from hidden motives because—" Darian checked himself. "My goal is to protect you." "From what precisely?" He possessed no response that would not betray his own clandestine dealings. "Simply trust my judgment," was his only recourse. "Victor D. Costa is a variable you do not want in your life." "The warning is noted." Ara patted his cheek, a gesture both affectionate and entirely performative. "I must depart. We can continue this tomorrow, yes?" She exited before he could object. Victor awaited her by the vehicle. His reaction: "He is settled." Excellent. Their return to the city was steeped in a charged silence. As Victor escorted her to her residence, he remarked, "Your performance tonight was exceptional, far exceeding my expectations." "Is that intended as praise?" "Do not allow it to inflate your ego." Yet a smile nearly breached his composure. "The substantive work is only now commencing. Darian perceives a shift but remains ignorant of what you have discovered. His ignorance constitutes our primary weapon. What is the next move? We allow him to make a mistake, and men of his archetype invariably do." Inside, Ara poured a drink. The bourbon her father favored, the same she drank on the night her world fractured. She contemplated the woman she had been 3 weeks prior, absorbed in the minutiae of cake designs. That version of herself was gone, perhaps shattered, perhaps remade. Her phone vibrated with a message from Livia. Have you lost your mind? Victor D. Costa, what is your objective? Ara stared at the text. It was from her own sister, a participant in their father's murder. She replied, My objective is to understand the rules of this game. Why does my choice concern you? 3 minutes passed before a response arrived. Just be cautious. Men like that are predators. As am I, Ara typed and then erased. Instead, she composed, I appreciate your concern. We will speak soon. She finished her bourbon, gazing at the city lights. By morning, Darian would begin his investigation, leveraging his network to understand her new alliance with Victor. And while he was thus engaged, Victor's assets would be advancing their own agenda, completing the dossier that would orchestrate the utter annihilation of his empire. Ara's phone chimed again, a message from Victor. Rest well, it read. The war has only just begun. A slow smile formed on her lips. For the first time in an age, she possessed a purpose, one that was perilous, just, and perfectly suited to her. The following day, Darian began calling her at 7 a.m. Ara let each call proceed to voicemail as she drank her coffee, her laptop displaying new intelligence from Victor's team. More evidence, more links. The conspiracy was far more extensive than she had imagined. Her phone illuminated once more. We need to speak today. She allowed 10 minutes to elapse before responding. My schedule is full until 3 o'clock. Coffee then? He replied instantly. My office, 2:30. It was not a suggestion, but a summons. The former Ara would have immediately complied, apologizing for her schedule. The new Ara, the one who had entered the gala with Victor D. Costa, sent a single word. Fine. She spent the morning at her father's corporation. Marcus Voss appeared worn when she entered, looking beyond his 72 years, though his gaze remained incisive. You caused quite a disturbance last night, he stated, bypassing any greeting. Ara secured the door. You've been informed? The entire city has been informed. My daughter making an entrance with Victor D. Costa. The gossip is spreading. And you? Are you speaking? Marcus settled back, his eyes fixed upon her. I am observing. 3 weeks ago, your concerns were flowers and seating arrangements. Now, you are forging alliances with the most formidable man in the city. This is no minor evolution. Circumstances evolved. Which circumstances? This was her opportunity. She could reveal everything, the recording, the evidence, and allow him to manage the crisis as he always had. But to do so would be to revert to the role of the victim, the daughter requiring salvation. Darian is not the person I believed him to be, she stated, selecting her words with precision, and I found it necessary to comprehend the world he truly occupies, the authentic one, not the sanitized narrative I was given. So I approached Victor. You have conducted business with him. You hold him in esteem. Esteem and trust are entirely different currencies, Ara. I know. She met her father's stare. But at this moment, I require an advisor who grasps the dynamics of power, someone who will not perceive me as fragile. A change occurred in her father's expression. Perhaps pride, perhaps apprehension, perhaps both. Your mother would have admired this quality in you, he said softly. She always claimed you possessed a fire that others failed to see. Ara's mother had passed when she was 12, after a swift, cruel battle with cancer. Only phantom memories remained. A trace of perfume, the echo of laughter, the click of heels on a polished floor. Darian has requested a meeting this afternoon, she said, pulling the dialogue from the past. He is agitated about the situation with Victor. As he should be, what is your intended message for him? Nothing of substance, just enough to maintain his imbalance. Marcus gave a slow nod. Be vigilant. A cornered man is a dangerous one. I will be. She departed before he could pose more questions, before he could learn of the audio file on her phone, of the evidence she possessed, of the true catalyst for her mission. He would know in due time, but not yet. Darian's office was a veritable fortress on the 48th floor, a sterile composition of glass, steel, and cold ambiance. His assistant greeted her with a brilliant smile, as if nothing had altered, as if Ara were still the perfect fiancé delivering pastries for the staff. He is expecting you. Please go right in. Darian stood at the window upon her entrance, his back to her, observing the city below. He did not turn. Close the door, she complied. I have been reflecting on last night, he began, about you and Victor and its implications. It implies I'm learning the family enterprise. He finally faced her. His features were a void, but his eyes were like ice. One does not learn an enterprise as decorative accompaniment at a clandestine gathering, and one does not engage with Victor D. Costa without offering something he desires or needing something he possesses. Ara took a seat, composed, and crossed her legs. Perhaps it is a combination of both. Elaborate. You are perpetually maneuvering, securing deals, expanding your empire. I wished to enter that world, so I utilized my father's contacts to reach Victor. He consented to mentor me. Mentor you in what specifically? In investment strategy, in reading individuals, in the flow of capital. She inclined her head. Why are you so profoundly agitated by this? Because Victor D. Costa does not grant favors, he accrues debts, and you will not be indebted to him. As I am indebted to you, the words escaped, sharper than she intended. Darian appeared momentarily stunned before his expression hardened. What is that intended to signify? Nothing. I am simply asking why my association with you is permissible, but any other is not. Why are your connections legitimate, while mine are considered suspect? Because my associates will not exploit you. And you are certain you will not? A profound silence descended between them, heavy and ominous. Darian moved toward her, perching on his desk directly before her, so near she could detect his expensive cologne. The scent suddenly repulsed her. Ara, I love you, he said. Everything I am doing, all of this, is for our mutual benefit, for our future. In her mind, she saw the recording, his voice discussing her father's death as a transaction, Livia's cold laughter. I know, she said, affecting a hollow smile. I apologize. She attributed her behavior to pre-wedding stress, a plausible lie about wanting to be a more capable partner by understanding his world. He absorbed it completely, his face awash with relief. Whether from genuine belief or the will to believe, the deception held. Just remain wary of Victor, he cautioned. Promise me. I promise. He kissed her forehead in a gesture of ownership. After 20 minutes of vacuous wedding talk, she fled to her car, her hands trembling until her phone buzzed. It was Victor. What was the outcome? He accepted it, barely. Good. Rossi's at 7. It is time to increase the pressure. Rossi's was a venerated Italian establishment in the Old Quarter, a family-run place where excellent cuisine served as a respectable front for the significant dealings conducted in private rooms. Upon her arrival, Victor was already seated in a corner, flanked by 2 individuals she had never seen. Ara, This is James Chen and Patricia Morrow, my operational team. James, youthful and of Asian descent, possessed an unnervingly observant gaze. Patricia, older and blonde, radiated a profound stillness that spoke of surviving trials that would shatter lesser individuals. They have been examining Darian's infrastructure, Victor stated. Present the findings. James activated a tablet, revealing a complex web. Darian Hale is orchestrating a vast money laundering operation through a network of shell corporations. The capital originates from the mob, which he sanitizes through investments in property, technology, and fine art. This is hardly a revelation, Ara countered. We understood the framework, Victor clarified. But James has uncovered the mechanics. A recent $15 million transaction was traced to an entity belonging to the Kozlov family. Ara's focus sharpened. The Kozlov syndicate was dismantled 5 years prior. Most of them, Patricia interjected, her tone precise. The remnants are recoalescing in the shadows. Darian is their instrument, cleansing their funds for a percentage and access to their enforcers. Patricia's expression was glacial. The Kozlovs possess long memories. Darian betrayed them once to ensure his own survival. They are merely using him, the instant his utility expires. She allowed the implication to settle. The silence was more eloquent than words. The situation is more dire, James added. We have secured communications between Darian and Livia dating back 8 months. This entire affair was architected. The engagement, the corporate merger, everything. 8 months. The proposal had been 6 months ago. The conspiracy predated the promise. Let me see, she commanded. James displayed a damning chronicle of messages. They discussed her father's will, his declining health, the optimal timing for their move. And Livia, her own sister, was an active participant, coldly orchestrating and mocking the ease of the deception. And then there is this. Patricia slid a document across the table. It detailed Darian's correspondence with a pharmacist, one amenable to sourcing pharmaceuticals that would prove fatal when combined with her father's medication. Ara absorbed the text twice. He intends to murder him. More accurately, he is planning to, Victor corrected. He has not yet acted, but the intent is clear. We could involve the authorities. Ara considered this. District attorneys require an undeniable case. This was merely intent. A skilled lawyer, and Darian retained the best, would dismantle it. She placed the paper down. What is our strategy? We allow his plan to unfold, giving him enough rope to fashion his own noose. When he acts, we incinerate him. Victor's gaze was intense. You must comprehend this. Once this path is chosen, there is no retreat. You will alienate people, allies who refuse to believe you, relatives who will label you insane. Livia is already lost to me, Ara stated, her voice devoid of emotion. She made her allegiance clear. And your father, this affair will devastate your family's reputation. My father can endure a scandal. He cannot endure the treachery of his own children. She met each of their eyes. What is Darian's timeline? Uncertain. Weeks? A month at most. The Kozlovs are pressuring him for results. A month, then, she resolved. For what purpose? Victor inquired. Ara envisioned her wedding, the grand hall, the circulated invitations, a guest list comprising the city's entire power structure. I will dismantle him in public, she announced, at the wedding, before everyone. James and Patricia exchanged a look. Victor simply watched her. That is theatrically ambitious, he conceded. It is also a decisive blow, Every influential figure will be in attendance. All his associates, all his backers. We expose him there, and his collapse is total. No narrative can save him. The public humiliation will be his undoing. It also paints a target on your back, Victor countered. The Kozlovs do not tolerate public embarrassment. Then we will ensure they fall with him. We will inextricably link the evidence to his handlers, making him too toxic for anyone to aid. A slow smile formed on Victor's face. You assimilate these lessons quickly. I have capable instructors. Ara looked at the accumulated evidence. But this is insufficient. I require leverage that prevents any form of retaliation from Darian. What do you propose? The Kozlovs. If we can document his role in rebuilding their organization beyond mere money laundering, we can bring in federal authorities. Frame it as a matter of organized crime. Patricia gave a slow, deliberate nod. That would be conclusive. We would be looking at RICO statutes. It would require proof of a coordinated pattern of activity. Can you acquire it? Yes, given time, but the risk is extreme. If Darian learns we are investigating the Kozlovs, he will know he has been compromised. He already views me with suspicion. Our task is to misdirect his focus. For the following 3 weeks, Ara inhabited a dual existence. Publicly, she was the devoted fiancé, enduring dress fittings and menu tastings, projecting an illusion of happiness at functions with his associates. She met with Livia, discussing bridesmaid arrangements while her sister delivered venomous falsehoods veiled in feigned affection. It was an agonizing performance, but a necessary one. Her private reality was that of a strategist constructing an unassailable case with Victor's team. James and Patricia delved deeper, unearthing evidence of systemic fraud and conspiracy. They traced financial flows and recorded conversations, assembling the architecture of Darian's downfall. And Ara absorbed every detail, learning from Victor's legal experts how to dissect financial records, identify shell corporations, and track illicit capital. She was receiving an education in the true mechanics of power. One evening, following an intense planning session, Victor poured her a bourbon. You have changed. For the better or for the worse? You are more difficult to predict. In this world, that is always an asset. Ara felt the spirit's warmth. Do you ever have regrets about this life? Daily. But regret is a useless indulgence. You play the hand you are dealt with the intent to win. And if the cost of winning is too high, Victor met her gaze. Then you determine what you are willing to forfeit. But the choice is yours. Never cede that choice to another. 2 weeks before the wedding, her father summoned her. He seemed diminished, his complexion ashen. A tremor in his hand caused his coffee cup to rattle. I had a consultation with the doctor yesterday, he began without preamble. My condition has worsened. He is prescribing new medication. A cold dread washed over Ara. What medication? He spoke the name. She knew it immediately from Patricia's research. It was a key component in Darian's planned pharmacological assassination. Dad, who prescribed this? Darian's physician. He insisted I switch to his specialist, called him the very best. Naturally. Do not take it, Ara pleaded. What? Under no circumstances are you to take that new medicine. I ask you to trust me. Marcus lowered his cup. Ara, what is happening? She stood on the precipice between strategic silence and ruinous truth. Darian is attempting to eliminate you. The words filled the space between them. Her father showed no surprise, only fixing her with a sharp, analytical gaze. Prove it, was his sole response. Ara produced her phone. She played the audio files, displayed the emails, the whole conspiracy rendered in stark digital detail. Marcus absorbed it all, his expression unreadable. After a long silence, he finally asked, "How long have you been aware of this?" 5 weeks. And you kept this from me. I had to play my own hand. By collaborating with Victor da Costa on a federal-level operation. Correct. Another pause. Then came a sound she had never anticipated. Her father began to laugh. It began as a low chuckle, and steadily grew, not from humor, but from a grim sense of vindication. I suspected, Marcus confessed, his voice lowering, not the specifics. But I had a visceral sense that something was fundamentally wrong. Darian's persona was too polished, his business successes too effortless. Men of his caliber do not trade genuine power for affection. Why did you say nothing? Ara asked. To see what kind of woman you would become, whether you would run to me for protection or whether you would forge your own weapon. Marcus moved to the window. Your mother, she shared your nature. The world perceived a beautiful, fragile woman. In reality, she was the steel spine of this family. I earned the money, but she made the strategic moves. This was a chapter of her lineage Ara had never known. She passed before she could teach you the game, Marcus went on. I am a hammer, not a scalpel. You required a strategist. He turned to face her. Victor is providing you with that education now. Are you angry with me? I am proud. And for the record, I am retaining my current positions. Dad, this is not a game. If they discover this, he said, let them. What is a 72-year-old man with a heart condition? They will dismiss me as paranoid, perhaps senile. A faint smile touched his lips. But we are aware of the reality, aren't we? For the next hour, they converted the office into a command center. Marcus activated his old network, calling in markers. He was adding his own considerable weight to the trap Victor's team was setting. By the time Ara left, the snare was complete. All that remained was for Darian to step into it. The following evening, Ara met Livia for dinner at their customary restaurant, a downtown bistro laden with shared history. Her sister, impeccably dressed, was engrossed in her phone. Hello, Livia said, rising for an embrace. It feels as if it has been an eternity. The wedding preparations are all consuming, Ara replied, a practiced falsehood. And you? They ordered beverages, engaging in superficial conversation until Livia made her move. So, I understand Dad is changing doctors. A positive step, surely. Darian's specialist is meant to be the best in his field. Ara held her sister's gaze. He has decided to stay with his current doctor. He dislikes disruption. You know how he is. For a brief moment, a flicker of darkness crossed Livia's features. What a pity. Darian seems so confident about this new physician. I believe Dad is the best judge of his own needs, Ara retorted. The topic then shifted to the wedding, to Livia's career, to a hypothetical future vacation they would never take. It was a flawless facsimile of sisterly affection, yet every word was hollow. Later that night, she sent a text to Victor. Livia is aware of the doctor situation. She raised the topic. They are definitely monitoring us. Excellent, he responded immediately. Let them watch. 10 days before the wedding, the tempo quickened. Darian grew agitated, paranoid. He was perpetually on his phone, engaged in hushed dialogues that ceased the moment she entered a room. He canceled 2 engagements with her father, citing fabricated work crises. The web of informants Patricia monitored had abruptly ceased communication. They were either warned or sensed the snare tightening. "We must accelerate the timetable," James insisted at a conference in Victor's office. "Their instincts are screaming." "But what is their concrete knowledge?" Ara retorted. "Uncertain, but Darian is mustering his forces, readying his people. He's bracing for a confrontation." Victor's fingers drummed against the tabletop. "So, we initiate the endgame immediately before they can mount a defense." "What is the strategy?" "The prenuptial dinner, 3 days prior to the wedding. All principal figures will be present. We reveal him there." Ara dissented. "No, the day of the ceremony. We aim for absolute annihilation." "Delaying affords them the opportunity to strike first." "Then we will neutralize that threat," Ara declared, her gaze sweeping the room. "We release a fragment of the truth now, just enough to induce panic in Darian, to make him believe his link to Kozlov is about to be exposed. He will react rashly," she mused, "commit a fatal error, and it will all be documented. Then at the ceremony, the entire charade collapses." A grim smile formed on Patricia's lips. "A surgical strike?" "Exactly." The following 48 hours were dedicated to setting the charges. An unnamed source contacted a journalist about illicit funds. A whisper was seeded into influential networks concerning a federal investigation of Kozlov. No evidence implicated Darian directly, yet it was sufficiently close to cause him distress. The fallout surpassed their most optimistic projections. Darian's call arrived at midnight, a mere 3 days before the wedding. "We must speak immediately." "It is the dead of night, Darian." "That is irrelevant. I am on my way." He appeared 20 minutes later, his appearance that of a man sleepless for days. His suit was disheveled, his gaze frantically scanning his surroundings. "I am under investigation," he announced the moment she opened the door. "Federal authorities. Someone has divulged information." "What are you implying, Darian?" "Fiscal offenses, illicit money transfers. They are inquiring about my enterprise, my associates." He paused, his stare boring into her. "Have you mentioned anything to Victor regarding my funds? Anything at all?" "No, I am ignorant of your financial affairs." "You don't discuss business with me, recall? You claimed it would simply bore me." He scrutinized her features, searching for any fissure in her composed facade. She revealed nothing. "Someone is attempting to ruin me," he stated at last. "Just before our wedding, an individual with access to privileged information." "Who would orchestrate such a thing?" "I am not certain, but I will discover their identity." He placed his hands on her shoulders. "Ara, listen to me. The coming days will be tumultuous. They will hurl allegations, falsehoods. I require your faith in me." "You have it." "Regardless of their claims or whatever evidence they present, remember it can all be fabricated. They can frame an innocent person." Ara merely nodded in response. She allowed him to believe his deception was successful. The instant he departed, she sent a brief message to Victor. "He is unsettled. The plan is effective." The response came at once. 3 more days. Remain steadfast." In 3 days, she would stand before all and systematically destroy the man to whom she nearly dedicated her existence. 3 days until her reality was irrevocably altered. Ara poured a bourbon, the brand her father favored, and gazed upon the cityscape. Out there, Darian was unraveling. Livia was likely beside him, attempting to devise an escape. Let them scheme. Ara possessed a more potent weapon. She held the truth, and in 3 days, it would be given a public voice. The pre-wedding dinner was intended as an intimate affair. 50 guests assembled in the Ashford Hotel's grand ballroom amidst subdued lighting and costly champagne. Yet the atmosphere was palpably fraught with tension. Ara's white gown was a strategic display, a veneer of feigned innocence with a significant cost. She observed Darian moving through the attendees, exchanging handshakes and false laughter, embodying the ideal groom. It was a role he played with innate skill. That much was undeniable. Livia stood near the bar, conversing with their aunt. Their gazes connected across the space, and her sister offered a smile that appeared cordial but felt glacial. "Are you prepared?" Victor's voice, a low rumble, sounded directly behind her. He was not on the guest list, an unwelcome specter at their last celebration. Darian had stiffened upon seeing him, but understood he could not create a disturbance. "As prepared as I can be," Ara whispered. "Your father's team is in position. James has secured the video transmission. Patricia is waiting outside with the physical evidence. Upon your signal—" "I know the signal." Victor's expression was grimly serious. "You can still abort this. Our evidence is sufficient to ruin him without a public spectacle. I don't simply want to ruin him. I want the world to witness his downfall." She paused. "Consider it vanity or strategy. A private allegation would spawn whispers of a scorned woman. This method eliminates all uncertainty." The entire evening felt like a theatrical production. Both fathers delivered speeches, and toasts were offered to the betrothed pair. When her own father mentioned his pride, the subtext was so profound she was astonished the audience did not perceive it. Darian presented his own oration on love and their glorious future. His rhetoric was so compelling that, had Ara not been privy to the truth, she might have believed him. Following his speech, he approached and kissed her. The room applauded enthusiastically. The only sensation she registered from his lips was deceit. During the main course, Darian's phone vibrated once, then again. A glance at the display shattered his composure completely. He muttered an apology and hurried towards the exit, the phone pressed to his ear. Ara glanced at Victor, who offered a brief, decisive nod. Patricia was positioned outside, likely intercepting the very communication that had just unnerved Darian. After 5 minutes, he returned, his smile appearing fragile and strained. "Is everything all right?" Ara inquired. "Merely business," he replied curtly, clutching her hand. 2 more days, and we depart from this place, just the 2 of us." "I can hardly wait," she responded, the falsehood becoming more effortless with each repetition. After the meal concluded, guests began to socialize. Ara was cornered by Aunt Margaret, who, oblivious to the atmosphere, wished to debate floral arrangements. "The peonies are my first choice," Margaret announced. "But we require a contingency plan in case of a delivery issue." Roses are traditional, I suppose, but utterly uninspired. Abruptly, Livia appeared beside them. "Ara, may I have a moment with you?" They moved apart from the others, settling near the large windows with a view of the city. "You appear tense," Livia observed. "It has been an incredibly difficult week." "Pre-wedding anxiety?" Ara nearly laughed. "No, just exhausted." Livia placed a hand on her arm, a hollow gesture of sisterly affection. "I know I've been absent recently. Work has been overwhelming, but please believe me, I am happy for you. Genuinely so happy." "Thank you, Liv. Darian is a dependable man, a bit intense at times, but a good person. You two will build a wonderful life together." The sentiment was delivered with such flawless sincerity it could only be venomous. "I am grateful for that," Ara managed to say, the words devoid of any real meaning. During her sister's embrace, Ara experienced a vivid memory of the recording. Livia orchestrating their father's demise, mocking Ara's perceived weakness. When they separated, Livia's eyes shone with manufactured tears. She was a complete sociopath, a brilliant manipulator, or perhaps a combination of the two. The celebration began to wane around 11. Guests departed with embraces and final congratulations for Darian. Her father left prematurely, citing fatigue, but the glance he gave her upon exiting conveyed volumes about their common objective. It was a look that communicated everything that remained unsaid. By midnight, only Darian and a handful of his loyal subordinates remained with the staff. "Let's depart," Darian said, his voice raw with exhaustion. The journey to his penthouse was conducted in absolute silence. Once inside, he poured a generous measure of scotch, a full 3 fingers, and simply gazed out the window. "Something is wrong," he finally stated. A jolt went through Ara, but she maintained an icy tone. "What are you referring to?" "I can sense it. Someone is maneuvering against me, attempting to dismantle my entire enterprise." "Who?" "If I had that information, they would already be neutralized." He turned to confront her. "But I will identify them, and I will handle them." "I have no doubt," she replied. He met her gaze directly. "You believe in me, correct? Even when circumstances become complicated, when the gossip begins to circulate." And it was certainly about to. "Those who wish for my downfall will fabricate elaborate tales, an entire network of falsehoods." She approached and took his hand. "Darian, whatever challenges arise, we will face them as one. That is the essence of marriage." A small measure of the tension eased from his posture. "I love you." "I love you too," she returned, the deception feeling like cinders on her tongue. She was compelled to remain overnight. Her departure would trigger his suspicions. Reclining beside him in the darkness, she synchronized her breathing with his, fixated on her proximity to the final objective. Only 2 more days. Her phone vibrated at 3 a.m. It was Victor. "Patricia has the recording. He plans to act on the wedding day. We believe he will attempt to substitute the medication then." "We will be prepared," she messaged in reply. "Obtain some rest. Tomorrow is the final day before the climax." She nearly scoffed. "Rest? Unlikely." The following morning was a scene of controlled pandemonium. The last dress fitting, urgent calls to suppliers, a deluge of trivial choices that seemed utterly absurd. Ara performed her role, smiling for the couturier, agreeing on seating arrangements, feigning interest in the choice between French and Italian champagne. Her father telephoned around midday. "The medication has arrived." Darian's physician delivered it personally. "You did not ingest it." "Absolutely not." I contacted the physician, confessing my reservations. I stated wish to delay until the nuptials concluded. His reaction? He was astounded. He tried to persuade me, stressing the criticality of the timing. Marcus paused. "He is complicit, Ara. The doctor is compromised." "Add his name to the registry. It grows substantially long." "Excellent," her father affirmed. "I require every single one. No untethered threads." That afternoon, she convened with James and Patricia at a bistro. Both appeared utterly drained. "We've secured everything," James announced, passing a tablet to her. The ledgers, the communications, the sworn testimonies. The apothecary cooperated for immunity, and Darian's physician maintained his own comprehensive records. It seemed he had chronicled the entire conspiracy, likely as a personal failsafe. It's all contained within. Ara navigated the files, witnessing months of toil distilled into an unassailable case. The presentation is prepared and secured, Patricia confirmed. 17 minutes. It features the raw audio alongside all corroborating proof. We can deploy it from within the event space. Who is managing the technology? That would be me, James replied. I'll be stationed in the audio-visual booth. On your cue, it will broadcast on every display. Video, audio, documentation, all viewers will witness everything simultaneously. And the contingency? 3 redundant systems. Even if his enforcers attempt to shut down, the presentation will proceed. Ara observed them, overcome by a profound sense of gratitude. My thanks for this. Patricia's demeanor softened marginally. You possess more fortitude than your appearance suggests, kid. Victor's assessment of you was correct. What did he say? That you are a reflection of him 2 decades prior, before his spirit was fractured by the world. I feel quite fractured at this moment. No, Patricia retorted, leaning in. You are filled with fury, a significant distinction. Cynicism is the cessation of care. You care so intensely you are prepared to incinerate everything. That is your purpose here. Perhaps she was right. Ara no longer knew. That evening she dined with Victor at Rossi's at their customary table. It felt like a homecoming, an odd sensation given their acquaintance of only 6 weeks. Apprehensive? He inquired. Utterly. Good. Apprehension hones the senses. He poured her a measure of wine. Following tomorrow's events, your existence will be irrevocably altered. You comprehend that, do you not? I am aware. I mean, in totality, you are severing every connection to Darian's sphere. Certain individuals in my world will forever harbor mistrust. They will perceive you only as a volatile agent of vengeance. Others will grant you respect, but you can never revert to being merely Marcus Voss's daughter. I have no desire to revert. Victor gave a slow, deliberate nod. Your father and I have conferred. He wishes for you to assume control of his organization, to train under my tutelage for several years, master the authentic game, and then command the operation. And your thoughts on the matter? My thought is you would excel. You would transcend mere competence. You possess instincts that cannot be imparted. He allowed the statement to linger. But it is a merciless existence, Ara. It exacts a price. It costs you relationships, serenity, and sleep. Are you attempting to dissuade me? I am instructing you to choose with full comprehension of the consequences, to enter this with your eyes completely open. Ara reflected on the past 6 weeks of sifting through financial records, uncovering shell companies, and participating in meetings where violence was simply another business strategy, of becoming a person who could lie to her fiancé's face without a flicker of hesitation. My eyes are open, she confirmed. They mapped out the entire operation until well after midnight, addressing every potential contingency, every frantic measure Darian might employ. As Victor escorted her home, he remarked, regardless of tomorrow's outcome, you have already triumphed. You reclaimed your own narrative. That is the only thing of consequence. Remind me of that when it concludes. I will. The morning of the wedding was achingly luminous, the weather so flawless it seemed a cruel jest. Ara awoke at her father's residence in her former childhood room. It was customary, the planner had asserted, for the bride to remain separate from the groom. Marcus was already downstairs, appearing more vigorous than he had in months. It was as if the single purpose had revitalized him. "How are you feeling?" he inquired, "as though I am on the verge of detonating my own life." "No," he countered, "you are on the verge of reclaiming it." He offered her coffee. "Your mother would have cherished this. She consistently maintained that the ultimate vengeance is compelling your adversaries to witness their own ruin. You speak of her more frequently now, because you now resemble her more closely." A faint smile touched Marcus's lips. She would have been proud. In fact, I am proud. The morning evolved into a meticulously managed whirlwind of preparations. The hair and makeup artists, the planner with her itinerary, the bridesmaids arriving with their coordinated gowns. Livia appeared around 10, looking resplendent and oblivious, with no inkling of the impending cataclysm. "You look breathtaking," she effused, seeing Ara in the stark, elegant white gown, a dress that cost more than the average person's yearly income. "Thank you, Liv." "I cannot believe my younger sister is marrying." Livia's eyes misted over once more. "I am just so overjoyed for you." Her performance was undeniably worthy of an award. At 11, her phone vibrated. It was Victor. "We have a green light. James is at the command station. Patricia holds the data. You need only to endure the vows." "What if Darian becomes suspicious?" "In that event, we trigger the reveal prematurely, but he will not. His security detail has been completely silent all morning." The main ceremony was slated for 2 p.m. at the Cathedral of St. Catherine, a location whose Gothic architecture and stained glass lent a profound gravity to the proceedings. Ara arrived at 1:30. From a window in the bridal suite, she observed the city's elite arrive, a veritable congress of the wealthy and influential. The corporate titans, the political figures, the old money dynasties. Victor arrived with his signature quiet gravity, appearing lethally sharp in a bespoke suit, and positioned at the altar was Darian, engaging in pleasantries with the priest, perfectly embodying the role of a joyfully anxious groom. 5 minutes, the wedding planner announced cheerfully. Ara's father materialized at the doorway, impeccably attired in his finest suit. He regarded her for a long moment. "This is your final opportunity to withdraw," he stated softly. "I am not withdrawing." "Good," he answered. "Now let us proceed to utterly destroy this monster." The ceremony commenced precisely on schedule. As the music swelled, the great doors swung open, and Ara began her procession down the aisle on her father's arm. Every head turned to watch. She saw Victor's inscrutable expression in the 3rd row. She noted James near the church's rear, likely transmitting a final confirmation. She observed the faces of the powerful, all present to witness a consolidation of empires. And she saw Darian, his gaze fixed upon her with an expression that could be mistaken for love if he were capable of such an emotion. The officiant spoke the traditional words of union and eternity. To Ara, it was all indistinct chatter. They completed the vows, the exchange of rings, and the query for objections. The resulting silence was quite comical. "By the authority vested in me," the officiant began, "I now—" "Wait." Ara's voice, as sharp and cold as a razor, utterly fractured the sacred quiet of the cathedral. "There is something that I must say." A stillness descended upon the assembly. A completely mystified silence settled. Darian's smile froze into a rigid expression. "Ara!" "What is this?" I possess information that everyone present should be privy to." She turned to face the vast audience before her. Hundreds of eyes were fixed on her as she started to speak about the man she was about to wed. "Ara," Darian's voice was a low, menacing rumble. "You will not." "Do what? Reveal these truths?" She held his gaze. "Is honesty not the foundation upon which a marriage should be built?" The cathedral's large displays intended to broadcast the ceremony suddenly activated. James had initiated the sequence. "What is this?" Darian's complexion turned ashen. "This," Ara's voice boomed, "is a short recording from 6 weeks ago, the very evening I was meant to deliver samples of our wedding cake." Her voice echoed from every speaker in the sanctified space, chillingly distinct. "The merger necessitates it. Her father will not execute the shipping agreements until his precious daughter is legally bound to me." Every individual heard those words. Darian, Livia, every soul within those pews. The recording continued, detailing the entire plot to terminate her father's life. The discussion about accelerating the timeline and making it appear to be of natural causes. Livia shot up from her front row seat, her face a mask of ashen terror. "Stop this, cease this immediately. For what reason?" Ara pivoted to confront her sister. "Do you not wish for everyone to hear your contribution? Your small suggestion regarding murder? How you mocked my foolishness." The audio cued to that precise section at that moment. Livia's voice emerged, glacial and lucid. "She is far too trusting, too delicate. She will weep at the funeral, rely on you for support, and she will never entertain a single doubt." The cathedral erupted in chaos. Gasps and shouts broke out as the entire congregation rose. Darian surged forward, but Victor was quicker, moving to intercept him as his associates materialized from the crowd, as if awaiting a prearranged signal. "Do not," Victor said in a quiet tone. The screens transitioned, now displaying financial records, shell corporations, money laundering operations, and incriminating correspondence with the Kozlov family. "This is madness," Darian shouted. "It is all fabricated, every last part." "Is it really?" Ara's voice remained steady. "Should we invite the federal investigators who have been pursuing this case? Or perhaps we could consult your doctor regarding the medication he prescribed for my father. Model." It was the very same compound designed to catastrophically fail his heart. A wave of audible shock washed over the assembled guests. Her father rose from his seat, his focus on Darian possessing a gravity that could warp steel. "You orchestrated an attempt on my life," Marcus stated, "all for the sake of shipping contracts. This is a misrepresentation. I was framed. Ara, you must know I'm incapable of this. I am required to know nothing." Ara's gaze cut into him, truly perceiving the serpent beneath the skin for the first time. "I know precisely what you are. I have for 6 weeks. The presentation continued, a 17-minute chronicle of irrefutable proof, reinforced by witness testimony. By its conclusion, no ambiguity lingered. Darian remained at the altar, his immaculate reputation disintegrating before the very society that built it. Some attendees were already moving toward the exits, seeking distance. Others were on their devices, likely connecting with their legal counsel. Victor's men had arranged themselves in a casual perimeter around Darian, not overtly menacing, but communicating he was contained. "The authorities are en route," Patricia's voice announced from the narthex. "Federal agents. They possess duplicates of this entire evidence file. They are coming to take individuals into custody. Darian glared at Ara, his expression a volatile fusion of fury, desperation, and raw malice. "You have annihilated me," he seethed. "No, I have preserved myself. The distinction is fundamental." Livia attempted an escape, reaching the aisle's midpoint before two of Victor's associates blocked her path. She was a ruin, her cosmetics streaked. The performance of sisterly devotion had reached its finale. "I was unaware," she cried. "I didn't believe his intentions were genuine. It was mere talk." "You provided him with concepts," Ara countered. "You researched the pharmacology. You understood exactly what you were complicit in." The cathedral had devolved into absolute pandemonium. Voices clashed as security personnel attempted to impose order. The wedding coordinator appeared to be on the verge of systemic collapse. Marcus approached the chancel, regarding Darian with cold, unyielding logic. "You targeted my family," he said, his tone dangerously quiet. "My own child. You perceived us as a vulnerable mark. Easy, Marcus. We can resolve this. There is nothing left to resolve. You are unequivocally finished." Marcus then turned his gaze to Ara. "You orchestrated this perfectly. I learned from the master." 10 minutes later, federal officers flooded the space. They secured Darian in restraints, reciting his rights as camera flashes documented his spectacular fall from grace. Livia was escorted out separately, still weeping, still professing ignorance. The wedding attendees dispersed shortly thereafter. A few murmured feeble apologies. The majority simply dematerialized. Victor lingered, ensuring all events were recorded and that no one attempted any last-ditch foolishness. By 4 in the afternoon, the cavernous hall was utterly still, occupied only by Era, her father, and Victor. "Well," Marcus offered into the silence, "that was quite the spectacle." Ara released a laugh that was nearly a sob. "I required them all to bear witness, and they did." Victor faced her. "Are you okay? I have no frame of reference. Inquire again tomorrow." A fair response. They exited through a side door, bypassing the media swarm congregating at the front. Marcus went home. Victor proposed a ride, but she declined, preferring to walk. She craved the open air, the distance, a moment to analyze the detonation she had just triggered. The bridal gown was cumbersome for walking, but she was indifferent. She had traveled approximately 3 blocks when Victor's vehicle appeared alongside her. "Get in," he instructed, his voice emanating from the open window. "I am fine. You are aimlessly walking in a wedding dress, looking as though you might fracture into a million pieces. Enter the vehicle, Ara." She complied. They journeyed through the city, enveloped in a profound silence. At last Victor spoke. "You comprehend that this is not concluded, correct? Darian will contest the allegations. His legal counsel will systematically dismantle your credibility. The media will transform this into a spectacle, I am aware. And the Kozlovs, they will not be pleased about this disruption to their revenue stream. Are you attempting to instill fear in me? I am attempting to ensure you are prepared. This marks the beginning of the war, not its conclusion." Ara observed the city lights. It appeared unchanged, a silhouette of structures in transit, occupied by people unaware a life had just been violently upended. "Then I suppose we will simply have to continue the fight," she stated. The faintest smile touched Victor's lips. "Yes, I suppose we shall." He took her to his own building, to a high-security apartment on the uppermost floor. "You will stay here tonight," he informed her. "My personnel are stationed outside. No one gains entry without my authorization. You believe Darian's associates will pursue me? I believe desperate men undertake desperate measures. And at this moment, Darian is an exceedingly desperate man. The apartment was immaculate, contemporary, and entirely devoid of personality. Ara sank onto the sofa, still clad in her wedding dress, and the emotional dam finally broke. The immense pressure of her actions, the connections she had severed, the life she had just demolished. The tears were not a trickle. They emerged as a great, uncontrollable sob. Victor appeared with a glass of bourbon. He sat beside her, offering no false platitudes or assurances. He simply remained there in silence as her entire reality fragmented. When the internal tempest subsided, he gave her the glass. "Better?" he inquired. "No, but functional. That is all you need to be for now." Ara drank some of the bourbon. It stung. Everything stung. "What is our next maneuver?" she asked. "Next, we ensure Darian is never afforded the opportunity to recover. The federal authorities have a strong case, but we must maintain pressure, ensure none of his allies feel bold enough to intervene. And Livia? Oh, she will betray him without hesitation, cooperating fully to protect herself. This is my own relation who assisted in plotting my father's murder. Sometimes family is merely a concept one must discard." He was correct. Ara knew fundamentally that he was absolutely right. They simply observed the sun descend, casting the city in gold. The next day would bring a new conflict. Journalists, lawyers, and new enemies seeking retribution. But for tonight, Ara had secured the victory, and that was the only thing that mattered. Morning arrived with brutal speed. Ara had slept on Victor's couch, still in her gown, covered by a blanket someone had placed on her. Her head throbbed. Her eyes ached. Victor was already working, seated at his dining table with coffee and 3 different newspapers laid out. "You are on the front page," he noted without looking up. All 3 of them, and every news outlet online. Ara pulled herself into a sitting position, feeling every strain. How severe is it? That is a matter of perspective. He pushed a paper toward her. The Times is labeling it the scandal of the decade. The Post chose the headline Wedding Crasher. The Journal is at least attempting journalistic integrity, concentrating on the federal indictments. The photograph was of her at the altar, in the dress, as Darian was led away in restraints. Her expression was a perfect mask. She barely recognized the person depicted. There is also video, Victor mentioned. Someone recorded the entire event. It has gone viral. Of course it has. Your phone was inundated. I powered it down around 3 a.m. She moved to the bathroom and confronted her reflection in the mirror. Mascara had left dark trails on her cheeks. Her hair was in complete disarray. The dress was a rumpled ruin. She appeared as if she had just emerged from a war. And perhaps that was the truth. She cleansed her face, abandoned any attempt to fix her hair, and left it as it was. Upon her return, Victor had a coffee prepared for her. Your father called. He wants to confirm your well-being. Am I well? You tell me. Ara considered the question. A day prior, she had unmasked her fiancé as a potential murderer before their entire social circle. She had upended her sister's existence. She was now the epicenter, the most significant scandal the city had witnessed in years. I am still breathing, she said at last. That has to be worth something. It is worth everything. Victor consulted his watch. The federal prosecutors wish to meet with you this afternoon to review your official statement, to prepare you for the trial. So quickly. They are not being complacent. Likely concerned Darian's organization will begin to destroy records or intimidate potential witnesses. He paused. One additional matter. Livia's attorney called. She wishes to speak with you. A firm refusal. That is what I communicated, but she insists she has new information, details not present in the evidence we gathered. Such as? They were not specific, but I would wager she is attempting to negotiate a deal for herself, likely offering testimony against Darian in exchange for a plea agreement. Ara simply drank her coffee. The coffee was potent and bitter, a reflection of her new reality. She would give her testimony. She required no special preparation. Victor gave a slight nod. Patricia is downstairs, he informed her. She has a change of clothes and the files you require for the meeting with the prosecutor. And security. That final word hung in the air. The Kozlovs have just lost their primary money laundering channel. They will not be pleased. Correct. The Kozlovs. She had been so fixated on Darian and Livia that she had nearly forgotten the crime family that now likely wanted her eliminated. What is the extent of my danger, she asked. Candidly, significant. But we are managing it. My people are observing you, your father, and anyone they might target for leverage. The entire circumstance was beyond belief. Victor framed the brutal reality of her new world with a grim finality. He extended one last offer of retreat. She could deliver her account from the shadows of a safe house, vanishing until the conflict concluded. But her response was a firm rejection of anonymity. To hide was to live as a fugitive from her own life. She had begun this conflict in the open and was resolved to see it through with the same conviction. A clear glimmer of respect surfaced in Victor's eyes. He would meet her resolve head-on. Patricia arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a garment bag and a thick file, her gaze assessing Lorara's state. She remarked that Lorara looked as though she had journeyed through a personal hell. Lorara's reply was laced with weary sarcasm. Patricia offered a change of clothes. The shower served as a crucial ablution, a 40-minute deadline hanging over her. The water was a symbolic cleansing. The severe, costly black suit became a form of armor, restoring a semblance of the person she was before the chaos. In the car, Patricia outlined the battlefield ahead. The prosecutor, Sarah Chen, was a formidable adversary. Incisive, relentless, a predator in the legal arena. Lorara was instructed to recount the facts with clinical precision. The tape, her investigation, the preceding day's events. There was to be no emotional flourish, no conjecture. When Lorara inquired about Livia, Patricia's response was sharp. Livia's lawyer was negotiating, but her allegiances remained uncertain. Patricia warned her to prepare for the possibility that Livia might receive a negligible penalty. She had abetted the scheme to murder their father, even finding amusement in it. Yet the law, as Patricia explained, interprets intent differently. A skilled defense could frame her as a passive participant in Darian's machinations, a woman who never intended to act. This was the cold mechanism of the justice system. The federal building was a maelstrom of media, a frenzy of cameras, reporters, and news crews. Questions were hurled at them the moment they arrived, probing her knowledge, the wedding's true purpose, and her role as an informant. Victor's security team formed a human shield, carving a path through the media onslaught. A microphone was thrust in her face. Victor swatted it aside. The building's interior was an abrupt, chilling silence. Within the sterile corridors, imbued with the scent of bureaucracy, Sarah Chen awaited them on the 7th floor. Younger than anticipated, perhaps 40, she possessed keen, analytical eyes. Chen's handshake was firm as she acknowledged the trauma of the previous day, stressing the urgency of their situation. For 4 hours, every detail was meticulously dissected. The recording, the background checks, each fragment of proof. Chen's questioning was a surgical procedure, precise and unyielding. She demanded dates, times, and exact phrasing. After first hearing the recording, she asked, "What was Larara's immediate action?" Larara explained she had created 3 copies and secured them separately. A shrewd move, her next step was to investigate Darian, uncovering his true name and his ties to the Kozlovs. Chen then probed why she had turned to Victor. The implied question was, why not the police? Larara paused, navigating the delicate answer. She knew the evidence was circumstantial. A recording could be dismissed as idle chatter. She required something irrefutable. Victor, she stated, had helped her secure it. And in return, his own security and crucial intelligence on Darian's network, which threatened his legitimate enterprises. Chen noted this down. She warned that the opposition would portray Larara's actions as a personal vendetta, the fury of a spurned woman seeking retribution. Larara countered that for a woman whose fiancé planned to murder her father for an inheritance, revenge seemed a proportionate response. A faint smile touched Chen's lips. The defense, she cautioned, would still attempt to paint her as unstable, even alleging she fabricated the evidence. The recording's authenticity was absolute, as were the financial records and witness testimonies. Chen affirmed her belief in the case, but reminded her that a jury's verdict is never certain. She closed her file, summarizing the current state of affairs. Darian Hale was facing a litany of federal charges, including conspiracy to commit murder and racketeering. While the case against him was formidable, his counsel was already exploring a plea agreement. Larara's response was an unequivocal no deals. Chen clarified that such decisions rested with the Department of Justice. If Darian could be leveraged against the Kozlovs, turned into a witness against more significant targets, he had tried to orchestrate her father's death, Larara insisted. Chen acknowledged her pain, but stated that her primary objective was dismantling entire criminal syndicates, which often involved strategic bargains with lesser players. Larara glanced at Victor, who had remained a silent observer throughout the ordeal. The Kozlovs, he finally stated, were the ultimate prize. Darian was merely a pawn. If Chen could use him to collapse their entire empire, Larara would gain a level of security far greater than his incarceration could provide. She wanted both outcomes: the organization destroyed and Darian imprisoned. Chen committed to her best efforts but advised Larara to brace for a scenario where Darian received a reduced sentence for his cooperation. The meeting concluded around 4 p.m., leaving Larara's mind reeling from legal strategy and power dynamics. In the car, Victor quietly affirmed that she had performed well. She didn't feel it. Chen, he added, was a killer. If she was confident in a conviction, it was likely assured. The only complication was a potential deal for Darian. But even with a deal, Victor reasoned, Darian's life was effectively over. His enterprise, his standing, his network, all were decimated. Prison was just one form of justice. Perhaps, but she harbored a desire for him to experience the same profound pain he had intended for her father. Driving through the city, she was haunted by remnants of her former life. Locations where she'd met Livia, the place Darian had proposed. A sudden need to see her father surfaced. Victor agreed to take her. She found Marcus in his study with a bourbon and a cigar, looking depleted yet triumphant. He asked how the meeting with the federal agents had transpired. It was good, she said. They believed their case was airtight. Marcus corrected her, saying it was airtight because of her actions. He gestured to a chair, inviting her to speak about the true source of her anxiety. Larara sank into it, explaining that Chen mentioned Darian was pursuing a plea bargain in exchange for testimony against the Koslovs. He would cooperate without hesitation, Marcus predicted. It was part of the game. Larara protested the injustice. Justice was irrelevant, he countered. They had shattered him. His businesses were ruined, his contacts had disappeared, and his former allies now sought his demise. Whether he served 5 years or 20, he was utterly finished. And Livia? Marcus's demeanor became glacial. He asked what about her? Larara relayed that her lawyer was seeking a discussion, suggesting she was prepared to testify. You will not speak with her, he commanded. Larara noted that Victor believed Livia was preparing to betray Darian to protect herself. Let her, Marcus said with cold indifference. Livia's fate was of no concern to him. She had ceased to be his daughter. The words were absolute, spoken with Arctic finality. Larara reminded him that Livia had helped plot his murder and had laughed about it. There is no recovery from that level of betrayal, Marcus stated, downing his drink. He advised her to concentrate on what she could influence: the trial, her own safety, and her future. The lawyers could handle Livia. He was right, and she knew it. Yet Livia had been her sister, her closest confidant for 26 years before this nightmare began. That evening, Victor escorted her to a small Italian restaurant in the warehouse district, a place far removed from the media's glare. He insisted she eat, observing as she listlessly moved food on her plate. She claimed to have no appetite. He urged her to eat regardless, noting it had been 2 days since she'd had a substantial meal. She managed a few bites which tasted of nothing. Victor gently prompted her to voice her thoughts. She confessed to questioning the method of Darian's downfall. So public, so dramatic. Dropping her fork, Larara wondered if she should have approached the police initially, allowing them to manage it discreetly. Victor countered with a series of hypotheticals. What if Darian had manipulated his way out? What if his lawyers had suppressed the evidence? What if he had walked free and proceeded to marry her? For one, her image would not be plastered across every news channel. Victor leaned in, identifying her emotion as regret, a predictable reaction. Was it? She asked. He noted that she had just detonated her entire existence. To question such a radical act was only natural. He then posed a critical question. If she could go back 6 weeks, armed with her current knowledge, would she alter any of her choices? Larara considered this, picturing the naive woman she had been, consumed with wedding plans and a future built on a foundation of lies, a shared empire with Darian. Children. It was all a fabrication. No, she finally declared. She would repeat every action precisely. Then, Victor said, she must abandon her doubt. She made the difficult choice and now must face its repercussions. The remainder of their meal passed in silence. As they returned to his building, her current sanctuary, Victor advised her to rest, for the true fight would begin the next day. The battle, he explained, was one of rebuilding. In destroying Darian, she had also dismantled the identity of the woman who was his partner. Now she had to discover who she was in his absence. Upstairs, Larara looked out at the city lights and contemplated her new identity. She was no longer just the sheltered daughter of Marcus Voss, nor Darian Hale's fiancé. She was not a timid woman who would apologize for another's crime. She was something new, a person who had chosen a devastating truth over a comforting falsehood. She was a woman who would set her own world ablaze to defend what was sacred. Perhaps this was the foundation upon which to build. Her phone vibrated. She had reactivated it against Patricia's counsel. The caller's number was withheld. Livia's voice, fractured and desperate, came through. "Please, just listen," she pleaded. Instinct urged her to disconnect, but a dark curiosity held her captive. What could possibly be said to justify this? Nothing. She had heard the recording and seen the evidence. Livia had helped plan their father's murder. Livia insisted it was never meant to be real, just empty words. But Larara countered that she had researched toxins and proposed methods, actions that transcended mere talk. After a fraught silence, a broken whisper emerged. "I was in love with him. With Darian, my mind was in disarray. Your mind was lucid enough to betray every soul who ever offered you love. He vowed we'd be together, that once the shipping deals were secured, he would leave you and we—" Livia's voice fractured into pieces. "I was so naive. I see that now." "You were malevolent. The distinction is critical. I am so sorry, Ilara, please. I know forgiveness is impossible, but I am still your blood. I am still—" "No. You ceased to be my sister when you mocked my capacity for trust, my softness." Ara's tone was glacial. "I hope you secure competent counsel. I hope you avoid incarceration, but our connection is severed." "Ara." She terminated the communication. She erased the number, poured a measure of whiskey, and permitted herself a final moment of grief for a sibling who was, in truth, a stranger. The subsequent weeks became a maelstrom of legal maneuvering, sworn depositions, and the careful shaping of public perception. Darian's counsel attempted every gambit, alleging the recording was a fabrication, that she had engineered the entire affair with Victor to eliminate a competitor. Nothing resonated. The evidence was too definitive. Livia, precisely as Victor foresaw, capitulated entirely. She gave testimony, divulging secrets of Darian's network that were unknown even to Ara. In return, she received a lenient bargain: 3 years of probation with no prison sentence. Marcus declined her calls. He excised her from his legacy, the family from everything. Ara felt nothing about Livia's fate, only the vacant sense of relief that this chapter had finally concluded. The Kozlov dilemma was more intricate. Federal agents raided 3 of her properties, apprehending 6 subordinates and confiscating millions. But the syndicate's leadership remained inviolate, directing operations from deep within Eastern Europe. "They are wounded," Victor clarified during one of their dinners. "Darian was their primary conduit into American commerce. They are disoriented without him, but they are not defeated. Should I be afraid? Constantly, but we are vigilant. If they attempt a move against you, we will have foreknowledge." Ara had begun immersing herself in her father's enterprise, absorbing the entire world of maritime shipping. It was a world of intricate brutality, a universe away from the philanthropic work she once pursued, and she found to her surprise that she thrived in it. She also commenced a much closer collaboration with Victor. He termed her a consultant, but her true function was that of his apprentice, learning the mechanics of genuine power in the city's shadowed corridors. "You possess lethal instincts," he had informed her, "but instinct is insufficient. You require the kind of knowledge not imparted at a university." And so she learned. She learned to identify the venom hidden in a contract's fine print, to build agreements that offered just enough to preclude a double cross, to perceive threats before they materialized, and to endure in a reality where trust was a weapon and betrayal was merely standard procedure. 3 months following the wedding that never occurred, Darian's trial commenced. Ara was present each day, a silent observer from the gallery, witnessing the prosecution methodically dismantle his defense with the recording, financial documents, and statement from dozens of individuals. Darian's defense was a feeble display. They argued entrapment, portrayed her as a diabolical architect, and even insinuated she was psychologically unstable. The jury was unconvinced. The verdict was returned after 4 days. Guilty on every count. Sentencing was set for 2 weeks later. The prosecution sought 20 years. Darian's attorneys pleaded for 10. The judge imposed a sentence of 15 with a possibility of parole after 10. It was inadequate. It would always be inadequate, but it represented a beginning. Ara emerged from the courthouse with her father and Victor at her sides. The press descended. Miss Voss, your thoughts on the verdict? She paused, her gaze meeting the cameras. Justice does not always bring satisfaction, but it is a necessity. Darian Hale attempted to destroy my family. He succeeded only in destroying himself. This is the outcome when kindness is mistaken for weakness. She paused. Let this serve as a lesson. In the end, truth is the victor. They were gone before another query could be posed. Back at her father's estate, Marcus poured 3 glasses of bourbon. To survival, he proposed, lifting his glass. To truth, Ara countered. Victor simply smiled and took a drink. Later, long after Marcus had retired, Ara and Victor sat on the terrace, observing the city's flickering lights below. What is next? She asked softly. What do you mean? Darian is imprisoned. Livia is a phantom. The Koslovs are weakened. It is finished. What follows this? Victor allowed the question to linger in the night air. You rebuild. You discover what your life is when it's no longer defined by this conflict. What if I don't know what I desire? Then you explore, you try new things, you make errors. He looked at her. You are 26 years old, Ara. You have just endured an ordeal that would have fractured most people. You have the time to discover the rest. Do I? The Koslovs remain a threat. Darian retains allies. Many people believe I'm a monster. There will always be adversaries. That is the cost of defending your position. Victor placed his glass down. But you are not isolated. You have your father, you have me. You possess abilities most people will never acquire. Is that intended to be comforting? It's intended to be factual. They sat in silence for a time. Then she spoke. Thank you. I would not have navigated this without you. Yes, you would have. Perhaps by a different path, but you would have survived. You are more resilient than you know. Everyone continues to say that. As they should, Victor stated, rising. Get some rest. We initiate the next phase tomorrow. What next phase? Your father wants you managing international operations. Consider Asian and European shipping routes. It is a high-stakes, chaotic arena. I know nothing about global shipping. You will learn, the same way you learned all of this, by immersion. He paused by the door. And Ara? Cease waiting for someone to bestow the crown upon you. You are already wearing it. Long after his departure, she remained standing for an hour, replaying the last 3 turbulent months, all she had forfeited and all she had constructed from the wreckage. She had lost a fiancé, a sister, and the entirety of her past existence. She'd lost that facile trust, that naive notion that love was a shield. But she had gained something in return. A spine of pure steel, a perfectly clear vision, and the fortitude to meet her own gaze. That had to be worth something. Perhaps it was worth everything. Her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations on the verdict. You won the battle, but the war is not nearly over. One of Darian's associates. Ara gazed at the words, feeling that familiar cold surge of fear. Then she erased it and blocked the number. Let them come. She had outlasted Darian. She had outlasted her own sister. She had survived the public annihilation of her life. Whatever they aimed at her next, she would endure that as well. And perhaps, just perhaps, she would do more than simply endure. Perhaps she would truly conquer. That ominous text was merely the beginning. Over the following 2 weeks, Ara received 6 more, all from disposable numbers. No explicit threats, nothing traceable, just small, toxic barbs meant to cultivate her paranoia. She presented them to Victor in his office one morning. "Thoroughly amateur," he scoffed, scanning the messages. "If the Kozlovs genuinely wanted you eliminated, you would already be a cautionary tale. This is simply static." How very reassuring. It is a statement of fact. A credible threat does not send a text message first. He returned her phone. "But we are enhancing your security regardless. One cannot be too cautious." Ara had already relocated to a new apartment, a penthouse with a secured entrance and a security system that was effectively a private fortress. Patricia had orchestrated the entire move, approaching it with the strategy of a military operation. Perhaps it was one. Work became her sole refuge. Ara immersed herself completely in her father's company, dedicating 12-hour days to trade regulations and port politics. It was barely enough to keep her thoughts from spiraling. Marcus was impressed. "You are grasping this faster than I ever did," he remarked one afternoon. "Your mother would have been immensely proud." "You persist in saying that because it remains true." He affixed his signature to the contract. "I am appointing you Vice President of International Operations. It is official." "Dad, I have only been at this for 3 months. And in that period, you have salvaged 4 major deals, identified 3 methods to reduce expenses, and prevented our entanglement with a triad front organization." Marcus held her gaze. "You are prepared. Better still, the board is convinced. After the Darian debacle, they view you as someone who can identify a serpent." "Excellent. So now I am the family's designated lie detector." "There are worse roles." He rose, gathering his documents. "There is a major shipping conference in Hong Kong next month. Key figures from across Asia would be in attendance." "You are going," he had informed her, "and you will represent this family alone. Victor would be there as well, a predator in the same hunting grounds. Different corporations, but their trajectories were set to intersect." "He will protect you." Of course Victor would be there. He was a constant presence now, a silent influence drawing her into his sphere of power. Ara still could not precisely define that sensation. Hong Kong was 6 weeks away, but other tempests were gathering much closer. One of them stormed into her office that Tuesday without the courtesy of a knock. Livia appeared, devastated, gaunt, as if she had aged a decade. Her hair was cut short, her face a map of her turmoil, and her attire was costly but worn. "Did security simply permit you entry?" Ara inquired, remaining seated. "I informed them I was your sister." A phantom of a smile played on her lips, an acknowledgement of a family bond now relegated to memory. Livia sealed the door, forcing a confrontation within the confined space. She requested a dialogue, a mere 5 minutes of reckoning, but was met with a sharp denial. She pressed, acknowledging the ruin she had wrought, framing her news as a necessity. Ara contemplated a forcible removal, a moment of visceral satisfaction, yet instead conceded a terse 3 minutes. Livia sank into the chair, her physical decay a testament to her choices, the bruised hollows of her eyes, the ceaseless tremor in her hands. She spoke of her impending testimony before a federal grand jury, a strategy to dismantle the Kozlov hierarchy. Ara was already aware. Livia confessed to giving Darian everything: the complete schematics of her father's operation, the vital shipping arteries, every single chink in their dynasty's armor. Livia's voice fractured, admitting she had surrendered their every secret, every point of weakness. She had rationalized it as constructing a future, but the truth was more sinister. She was arming the very man who sought their annihilation. Ara demanded a purpose for this confession. The point was stark. The Kozlovs knew she was the architect of their downfall, the holder of the one key that could collapse their entire American syndicate. Her empty eyes met Ara's, conveying her lawyer's belief they would attempt to eliminate her before she could speak. Ara's suggestion of witness protection was met with a bitter truth. The Federals deemed the threat not yet credible, pending an overt act. Livia's whitened knuckles showed her terror. It was a plea born of fear from a woman who knew she was unworthy of help, but was too frightened to face her fate alone. Ara observed the husk of the woman once called sister, the same person who had smirked through their father's eulogy and co-engineered the theft of their birthright. Searching within herself for some flicker of empathy, she found only a profound void. Not rage, but a deep, weary hollowness. She simply asked what was wanted of her. The answer was uncertain. Perhaps a final apology, a confession of the morning ritual of regret, wishing to reverse the flow of time. Wiping her eyes, Livia affirmed Ara's long-held truth. She had ceased to be a sister when she chose him over family, over loyalty, over everything. Ara quietly confirmed this reality. Livia then asked for forgiveness. The question hung in the office's dead air. After a moment of genuine consideration, Ara delivered the verdict, a single word as heavy as lead. No. Forgiveness, she explained, implied the possibility of future trust, and that trust, Ara clarified, was a bridge Livia herself had burned to ashes, forever beyond repair. Livia's nod was one of grim acceptance, as if no other outcome were conceivable. She declared this moment a final goodbye. Ara corrected her. Their connection had ended 3 months prior. Her sister rose and moved to the door, hesitating with her hand on the knob. Her parting words were a concession. Ara was always the stronger one, a fact that had fueled a blinding jealousy. She offered a final hope for Ara to build something remarkable, to find happiness, and perhaps someday to think of her without hatred. Ara's reply was colder than hate. It was absolute indifference, which she suggested was a far crueler fate. Long after Livia departed, Ara remained, lost in the expanding silence, contemplating a world unseen by others. Patricia materialized in the doorway, a silent observer. After confirming Livia's departure, she inquired about Ara's well-being. Ara's response was a question of definitions, a fair counter. Patricia entered, closing the door softly, and validated Livia's fear of the Kozlovs, confirming street whispers of their intent to silence her permanently. Ara dismissed it as an issue that no longer concerned her. Patricia outlined the strategic fallout. If Livia is eliminated, the government's case crumbles, the Kozlovs go free, and Ara spends a lifetime looking over her shoulder. At this, Ara finally engaged. Patricia's suggestion was a paradox of strategy. Sometimes survival depends on protecting the one you most despise. She revealed that Victor was already allocating resources to ensure Livia's safety until her testimony. After that, her fate was her own. Ara realized this was Victor's play. Patricia clarified he was acting on Ara's behalf. knowing the psychological weight of Livia's death would fall upon her, a burden he refused to let her carry. Ara resented Victor's perfect understanding of her psyche, and she resented his accuracy even more. She acquiesced with a sharp command for zero contact, no updates. Simply keep Livia alive long enough to serve as the instrument of the Kozlov's destruction. It was a done deal. The following week was a study in controlled tension. Ara moved through her work like a phantom, navigating meetings and deals to construct her new enterprise, while her thoughts strayed to Livia, a hunted figure in the shadows. She fought to remain indifferent and was defeated. On Thursday night, Victor's call delivered the news. An incident had occurred. The world seemed to fall away from beneath Ara's feet. She demanded to know its nature. Someone had made an attempt on Livia at her apartment. Patricia's team had intercepted them. 2 men with pronounced accents, armed with enough firepower to wage a small war. Ara had to ask if she was harmed. Livia was safe, profoundly shaken, but physically intact, and already relocated to a different safe house now under the protection of federal marshals. Ara released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She asked if her team had extracted any information. They had gleaned a little before counsel intervened, but it was sufficient. The connection to the Kozlovs was direct, proving they had dispatched the assassins to prevent her testimony. Victor noted the tactical advantage. This was an undeniable gift to the prosecution. The threat was now tangible, a fact the district attorney would surely leverage. Livia was set to testify on Monday and would likely disappear into witness protection afterward. Monday arrived. Ara kept her distance from the courthouse, observing the spectacle unfold on the news. Then Livia appeared, a diminutive and frightened figure engulfed by a phalanx of federal agents, escorting her into the building. For a fleeting moment, a sliver of sympathy for her sister surfaced in Ara, but it was quickly subsumed by an overwhelming exhaustion. The testimony was an exhaustive 6-hour purge of the soul. Livia recounted every detail with precision, exposing names, dates, hidden ledgers, and the entire operational framework. It was a fatal blow, providing enough evidence to indict 12 individuals, including 2 high-ranking members of the Kozlov family. By Tuesday, federal raids were executed across 3 states. By Wednesday, the Kozlov American Syndicate was nothing but a ruin. That evening, Victor took her to celebrate the victory. They occupied their usual Italian restaurant, their customary corner booth. He raised his glass, declaring she had succeeded, vanquishing Darian, crippling the Kozlovs, and securing her legacy, all within 4 months. She corrected him, stating it was a joint victory, a collaborative effort. He countered with a small smile, asserting that her inherent nature as a predator meant she would have found a way regardless. But he was glad their paths had converged. They discussed business, an upcoming Hong Kong summit, future strategic maneuvers. But as the evening deepened, the conversation shifted toward something more elemental. Ara asked if she could pose a serious question. He assured her she could always ask, though an answer was not guaranteed. She probed his true motive for helping, sensing it was about more than just Darian encroaching on his territory. Victor fell silent, studying his wine. He then asked if she wanted the unvarnished truth. She did. He began a story from his past, 25 years ago, of his engagement to a perfect woman. Beautiful, intelligent, with an impeccable background. The truth, however, was that she was an informant for a rival organization, systematically betraying his every confidence. When asked what he did, his answer was simple. He married her. For 5 years, he existed within an elaborate fabrication, believing he could manifest it into reality. He met her gaze. Ultimately, she abandoned him for a wealthier man, the separation costing him half his fortune. Ara offered sympathy. He dismissed it, calling it the most valuable lesson he ever received, to always trust one's intuition, because that which feels false invariably is. When she first approached him with the recording, he saw someone who had learned that same brutal lesson and at a much younger age. Someone unwilling to waste years living a beautiful lie. Ara asked if he was therefore saving her from his own fate. He denied it. He was merely supplying the weaponry for her to save herself. A critical distinction. Ara sipped her wine, then inquired about the fate of his ex-wife. He replied that he had heard she married a technology billionaire in Silicon Valley, achieving the life she had always coveted. Victor's shrug conveyed complete detachment. He wished her well, holding no animosity. Ara questioned the sincerity of this. He affirmed it. Holding a grudge, he explained, is a squandering of vital energy that he would rather invest in creation. Leaving the restaurant, they stepped into the vibrant energy of the night. The city was an orchestra of light and motion, a relentless current. Ara had known this urban landscape her entire life, but tonight it felt entirely new. She posed one final question. He noted her inquisitive mood. She asked what their future held as partners. Victor stopped on the sidewalk, asking what she wanted to happen. She confessed she did not know. A few months ago, she said, he was her mentor, her guide to the brutal realities of their world. But now that dynamic felt altered, transformed into something more significant. He asked if this possibility unsettled her. She was unsure, wondering if she was confusing gratitude with another emotion entirely. Or perhaps, Victor proposed in a low, unwavering voice, she was finally acknowledging a shared wavelength, a perception of the world that few could comprehend. She asked if this was a partnership. He confirmed it could be, if that was her choice. His gaze was direct, unwavering. He was not Darian, he stated, and would not engage in games or deception. With him, what she saw was the unvarnished truth. And what she saw, she countered, was a man who commanded the shadows, who brokered deals with killers, who imposed his will with absolute force. Indeed, he affirmed, a statement of fact, not apology. This is the very architecture of my reality, and I make no excuses for it. Nor am I demanding any, Aller countered, her breath measured. I am merely calculating if I can exist within its walls and not sacrifice the remainder of my soul. What you fear losing will not be lost, but reforged. It is an evolution, not an erasure, Victor asserted, closing the distance. Besides, you entered this world the moment you chose to attack rather than retreat. He was not wrong. The woman who once agonized over trivialities was a ghost. In her place stood a colder, more precise entity, one who could navigate the machinations of titans and dismantle criminal empires, her decisions echoing through thousands of lives. She had to become an equal force, a figure who could stand beside Victor Dosta and never be mistaken for a subordinate. Very well, she finally exhaled. Very well, what? He pressed. Very well, let us discover where this path leads. It was a partnership, an alliance, a covenant that demanded absolute transparency. There could be no hidden agendas or psychological games. For this to function, it required a foundation of truth. A genuine smile at last cracked the iron facade of Victor's composure. Agreed. They moved toward his vehicle as the city hummed around them, oblivious to the tectonic shift in power that had just occurred. The Hong Kong conference was a glittering battlefield, just as Marcus had foretold. A high-stakes game of chess between Asia's most powerful figures, with fortunes hanging in the balance. And at its epicenter, Aller maneuvered like a queen, securing 2 pivotal agreements and forging alliances with shipping magnates from Taiwan and South Korea, silencing any who questioned her place at the table. Victor was a parallel force there, executing his own strategic maneuvers. Yet they carved out insulated moments for themselves, dinners that bled into dawn, conversations that dissected strategy and risk, instances where their alliance seemed to evolve into something more profound. One evening, against the glittering tapestry of the Hong Kong skyline from her hotel balcony, Victor's voice was a low resonance. "You are not the same person I first met." He paused. "It is not a judgment of better or worse. Simply different, more certain. You no longer apologize for your own existence. I am not entirely convinced it is a positive development." "Why would it not be?" she inquired. "Because there are moments I miss the person I was," he conceded. "The man who held a baseline faith in human decency, who believed love was a panacea for any wound." "That person was a liability," she stated softly. "Perhaps," Victor allowed, "but he would have been shattered in time. And yet, he was also happier." "Happiness is a fleeting luxury," she countered, her tone distant. "Power, security, respect. These are currencies with lasting value. Happiness is a transient shimmer." Aller turned, her gaze boring into his through the dim light. "Is that a truth you hold?" He allowed the query to linger between them. "I once did. Now, I am less certain." "What precipitated the change?" she whispered. "You did," he admitted. "Witnessing you wage war for what is meaningful, seeing you refuse to be broken by betrayal. It served as a stark reminder that some things are worth defending, even if they leave one utterly exposed." "Are you implying I am a vulnerability?" "A terrifying one," he replied with a faint smile. "But it is a state to which I am becoming accustomed." They stood in shared silence, the city lights below them a sprawling field of fallen constellations. "When we return," Aller said, fracturing the quiet, "I intend to begin something new, a foundation, to use our profits to aid those who have been betrayed, who have been exploited. Décevoir, to arm them for their own retribution. It is an immense undertaking, I am aware, but my thoughts linger on those who lacked my advantages, the capital, the network, someone like you as an ally. What is their fate?" "Typically," he said quietly, "they are erased." "Then let us alter that outcome, for a select few, at the very least." Victor simply observed her, registering the iron resolve in her eyes. "You are entirely serious about this." "I survived because I possessed an advantage," she stated. "I wish to grant that same edge to those who possess nothing." "It will be chaotic. It will cost a fortune. You will cultivate new adversaries." "I am already saturated with adversaries. I may as well acquire them for a worthy cause." For the first time, Victor laughed, a genuine, deep sound she had never heard. "Very well. Upon our return, we will begin to draft the framework. An entire foundation fortified with resources, legal authority, the complete arsenal." "As simple as that?" she asked, slightly taken aback. "As simple as that," he affirmed. "You wish to remake the world? I will serve as your co-conspirator. That is the function of a partner." They returned to the city 3 days later. The foundation became Alara's singular focus. She collaborated with attorneys on its structure, with accountants on its finances, and with counselors on its support mechanisms. Her father contributed a significant sum to launch it, and Victor invested his own capital and contacts. Within 6 months, they had a physical location, a dedicated team, and their inaugural clients. Individuals who had been swindled, exploited, and betrayed by those they trusted. People who mirrored who she once was. She met with each one, absorbing their narratives and helping them architect the precise retribution needed to reclaim their lives. Victory was never a certainty, but its frequency was sufficient to fundamentally alter the dynamics of power. The media became enthralled. After months spent detailing the scandal, they now had a new protagonist. The woman who had incinerated her fiancé's reputation at the altar was now a champion for others seeking to escape a similar destiny. She granted a single interview, articulating with precision that she sought neither fame nor symbolism. Her sole objective was the work itself. 1 year after the wedding that never was, she stood in her foundation's new headquarters, observing the training of volunteers. Her father was present, appearing more vibrant than he had in years. Patricia and James now managed the foundation's security. Even Victor appeared, professing he was merely inspecting what his investment had yielded. "You have constructed something extraordinary from the ruins," Marcus observed in a low tone. "Your mother would have been immensely proud." "She would have been, but you would have labeled me a dreamer, arguing that commerce and charity cannot coexist." "And I would have been profoundly wrong," he conceded. "This is both a masterful enterprise and an act of pure compassion. It seems one can, in fact, have it all." At that moment, Victor materialized at her side. "There is someone you should see." Aller accompanied him to a small conference room where a woman in her mid-30s waited, nervously gripping a file. "Miss Voss, I am Sarah Chen. I am a prosecutor. We met approximately 1 year ago." "I recall," Aller answered, "you were assigned to Darian's case." "Correct, and now I am on a new one. I believed you had a right to be informed." Chen slit the folder open. "Darian Hale was killed 3 days ago. The official report cites a prison altercation." "Wait," she continued, "but we are reasonably certain it was an orchestrated killing." An unnatural calm descended upon Aller. It was not relief, nor sorrow, just a cold, immutable fact. "The Koslovs," she stated, her words a conclusion, not a question. "That is our assessment." Darian was preparing to disclose more, to offer further testimony. They deemed him too great a liability and eliminated him, but they miscalculated. The intelligence Darian provided before his death was sufficient to levy federal RICO charges against their remaining leadership. We executed warrants this morning. We apprehended 6 individuals, including the head of the family. Victor leaned forward. "Are you saying the Koslovs are finished?" "Their American operation is completely dismantled. Interpol is pursuing their European networks. It will require years, but we are disassembling the entire apparatus." Chen met Aller's gaze. "I wanted you to understand that this entire process began with your evidence, with your testimony." After the prosecutor departed, Aller remained seated, attempting to assimilate the reality that Darian was truly, irrevocably gone. "Are you all right?" Victor's voice was unexpectedly gentle. "I do not know," she confessed. "I have spent an entire year powered by a singular, intense rage for him, and now he simply is not." "What is it you are feeling?" Nothing, she whispered. A void. I should feel a sense of relief, or closure, or victory, but there is only emptiness. That is logical, he reasoned. He was already excised from your life. This is merely the official record finally aligning with that fact. Perhaps she no longer knew what she was supposed to feel. That evening, they dined at her apartment. She prepared a meal, an act she had not performed in months, and they ate on the balcony as the sun descended. I have been contemplating, Victor began, what comes next, for the foundation, for us. He set down his fork. We have engaged in this elaborate choreography for a year now, a partnership, a friendship, whatever label we have applied. But I believe we are both aware that it has evolved into something more. Aller's heart began a frantic rhythm. Victor, allow me to finish, he said softly. I understand you have been wounded. I understand that for you, trust is a treacherous landscape. But I also know that we function. We comprehend one another. We desire the same fundamental things. His gaze was fixed on hers, entirely earnest. I am not proposing marriage, nor am I requesting a promise you are not prepared to make. I am simply suggesting we cease the pretense that this is purely business. Her question, a mere whisper, was an invitation for clarity. He offered a redefinition of their terms, to build not a contract, but a reality forged between them. Aller considered the preceding year, a period where Victor's tutelage and trustworthiness had supplanted Darian's deceit. She recognized the foundation they had erected from the ashes had evolved into something far more profound than a partnership. Her simple okay was an act of liberation, an agreement to build an authentic future, unburdened by scripts or expectations. Victor's smile was his assent. As city lights bloomed, they discussed their foundation, their meal, a prelude to new ventures. Their dialogue flowed between the profound and the mundane, a rhythm unique to those who share an unspoken understanding. By the window, Aller reflected on her own metamorphosis, from the girl with cake samples, who witnessed her world shatter, to the woman who chose to fight rather than fracture. That girl was a ghost. In her place stood a survivor who had dismantled corruption and built meaning from the wreckage. A woman who now understood trust, not as a shield from pain, but as the conscious decision of who is worth the risk. Victor's presence beside her was a quiet warmth as he asked what occupied her thoughts. A year ago, I believed my life had concluded, she confessed. It was, in fact, just beginning. Do you have regrets? Countless, she admitted, but not this, not the battle. Good. Because our future is immense. A faint smile graced her lips. Naturally, he chuckled. Your father intends to retire in 2 years, leaving you the entire corporation, he told me. And I'm expanding into new markets, Asia, South America, Europe. I require a partner versed in international logistics. Is that a job offer? She countered playfully. It is an offer of an empire. We merge our firms, synchronize our strategies. We construct what neither could alone. Aller faced him directly. You want to merge our companies? I want, he stated, his tone deep and absolute, to merge our lives. The union of their companies was merely the prelude. This new venture was a monumental wager, one that could either forge an empire or incinerate their existence. How do we begin? She inquired. A genuine smile transformed Victor's face. Immediately. They worked through the night, drafting blueprints, pinpointing vulnerabilities, and envisioning a future that felt both preordained and impossible. By morning, a new framework existed. Within a week, a coherent plan was formed. In 6 months, the alliance of Voss Shipping and DeCosta Industries had fundamentally redrawn the city's architecture of power. 1 year later, they commanded 12 new territories. And within 2 years, Marcus formally abdicated, entrusting the family legacy to Ara. She addressed the media, flanked by her father, with Victor observing from the front row. Marcus's voice carried weight. Voss Shipping was my life's work, but a new epoch requires new leadership. He asserted his daughter was supremely qualified, having forged new alliances, conquered new markets, and demonstrated the strategic brilliance their future demanded. He was proud to pass the torch. Ara fielded every press question with an unwavering composure that bore no trace of the diffident girl she once was. Later, Marcus spoke to her privately, his voice gentle. "Your mother would be immensely proud," he whispered. "I repeat it because it is the most profound truth I know. From an unimaginable crisis, you forged an unbreakable strength. I had excellent mentors. You had the correct instincts. We merely taught you how to heed them." He embraced her. "Pursue happiness, Ara. That is my only wish for you. Build your empire, reshape the world. But be happy." "I will try." "That is sufficient." That evening, Ara and Victor returned to Rossi's, celebrating at the corner table where their story began. Victor raised his glass, proposing a toast. "To new beginnings." Ara met his glass with her own. "And to surviving the conclusions of the old." They drank, their conversation weaving together plans for a future that now felt tangible and secure. Beyond the window, the city's unending drama unfolded, but Ara, having walked through fire, now held a deeper understanding. She had learned that betrayal is not necessarily an endpoint. It can be a crucible that reveals one's true form. Her gaze fell on Victor, her anchor, her partner, the man who offered her difficult truths over convenient falsehoods. "What are you contemplating?" he asked softly. "Only that I am glad it was you," she replied. "That when I called for aid, it was you who came." "The sentiment is entirely mutual." He took her hand. "We are a formidable team." Invincible. Leaving the restaurant, they traversed the streets of the city they had claimed together, passing the cathedral where Ara had unmasked Darian and the building where Victor had first offered her sanctuary. They moved past the monuments of a war they had decisively won. Their empire was thriving, their enterprises generating immense wealth. Darian was erased. The Kozlovs were a footnote. Livia was relegated to state custody, abandoned to her own destructive choices. And Ara was finally unbound, free to create, to command, to become her true self. This conflict began with her trapped in roles others had written: the fiancé, the daughter, the sister. Now she was the sole author of her narrative. Such freedom was worth every casualty. "Let's go," Victor said, guiding her to his car. "Time for home." Home. The word itself was transformed, not a location but a condition. A sanctuary built from ruin, a covenant sealed in truth, a love forged by choosing one another with full knowledge of the scars they both carried. Ara settled into the passenger seat. As Victor navigated the streets, the city's neon lights cut through the night. The morning would usher in a new chapter, new adversaries, and new opportunities to assert their dominion. But for tonight, they controlled the entire board. And that was everything.